Good afternoon, everyone. My name is James Jimmy Hills, and I am the host of Java with Jimmy. And I wanted to, first of all, say salute and congratulations to a good friend and brother here from the community, Mr. Joseph Bennett, who, as many of you know, on yesterday received the official notice of freedom and no longer having this frivolous case hanging over his head after decades. In January of this year, I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. Bennett, and we will be speaking with him again exclusively in the very near future. But in homage and honor and respect of everything that this young man has done since coming home and his vindication on yesterday, I thought it was most appropriate to show the video of my conversation with him earlier from January this year. And so I'm going to ask you to do me a favor, hit that share button, that like button in support of this young man and listen to his story from January of this year. As you all know, Mayor Wu and if you give me a second, I'm actually going to play the video. Mayor Wu apologized to the Bennett family in December 20th of 2023. And I have that video here. I have that video here. That's the picture. And we're going to get that before you in just a second. Moments, albums, memories, photos. All right, let's see if we can get the video queued up here of her apology to the Bennett family. For those of you that are not familiar, I would encourage you to go to HBO Max and watch the Murder in Boston documentary that clearly outlines everything that went wrong toward the Bennett family decades ago. And so I am determined to get that clip of the video with the mayor, and we will watch the interview with Mr. Bennett in just a few moments because I'm going to get that clip. Let me know in the comments if you are aware of this, if you've watched the documentary. I'm just curious to see if this is on folks' radar. It should be for the injustice that this family experienced. And so I'm going to play this video in just a second. Okay, here we go. It's coming, you all. December 20th. Yes, I should have had this queued up, but this is sort of an impromptu. I've spoke with Mr. Bennett, and for anyone that's wondering, he is aware that I am recasting this video and is given his permission. So, of course, it's going to take me forever to try to find it. Why don't we go ahead for the reason that we're here and share the video of my conversation with Joseph Bennett from earlier this year, and I will locate the video with the mayor. I just sometimes it becomes a personal challenge. I'm going to find this what I need, but here we go. It was monumental for the city of Boston, which really to some extent had no choice but to do this, to apologize to this family for all that they've endured, and specifically Joseph dealing with this such an interesting case that they just forced upon him. And so for the city of Boston to apologize about this is definitely major, because what it did was take accountability for the fact of the wrongdoing of the police department, of the racism that, and a lot of the inappropriate, unlawful behavior. A lot of us were subject to stop and frisk at that time in this city. And there's a whole generation that is not fully aware of a lot of because of what happened, a lot of, and we still got a long way to go, a lot of the equity that is still needed in police reform was built on the backs of the Bennett family. And so I think I will, hopefully this video won't take forever to transpose, and it probably will. I'm going to go ahead and play the interview, and I'll play the apology with the mayor after, as this video is getting ready. So here we are with the interview with Joseph Bennett from January of 2024, earlier this year. You to engage in this conversation. And so please feel free to comment online. We are also going to take questions from those that are in the audience, but we are here today to talk about the impact of wrongful convictions. We're going to talk from a personal standpoint and impact with my first guest. We're going to talk more on the macro impact on the communities that are most impacted, marginalized communities, by wrongful convictions, which typically the numbers show typically are Black men. We're going to talk about that macro impact, and then at the end, we're going to talk with a sister whose mission it is to ensure that those that get to a point that they want to seek therapy and maintain their mental wellness, as well as address their mental illness, she works to ensure that she removes barriers to resources. And so we're getting ready to go into our conversation. My first guest is Mr. Joseph Bennett. He's a member of the Bennett family. My next guest after him will be Reverend Jeffrey Brown, and after that will be Naisha Deed of Pure Spark. And so some of you may be familiar with the recent documentary that was shown on another network, but this documentary highlighted for us here in Boston, for many of us that lived during that time, I witnessed it and seen it. I remember the night and things that had happened in relation to the Carol DeMady Stewart case in the Mission Hill area. And so I would like to ask my audience here in the studio, and for those of you that would like to comment online as well, please welcome my guest, Mr. Joseph Bennett of Yard Time Entertainment.
Thank you.
So I'm going to be very honest. I fluctuate. You know, in one sentence, you're Joseph. I call you Jay. But what amazed me was, for the first time in my life, I heard them call you Joey in the document. I've never heard no one call you Joey.
Joey's on my birth certificate.
Joey's on your birth certificate?
Yeah.
Not Joseph?
No.
Really? See,
Joseph is was given to me by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, so I just let him keep running with it. But my name on my birth certificate is Joey. Is Joey? Okay, so we'll go with that. I know I was going to learn a lot today, and so for those that don't know, please introduce yourself. And in that introduction, feel free to go into a large part of your story. It's not all of who you are, but what you dealt with some years ago, a few years ago in 1989, we're here to talk about that, had a huge impact on your life. So let's have a real conversation about that. Let's do it. 1989 changed the trajectory of my life when the police stormed our house and destroyed everything in our family, pretty much. From that point on, I didn't like cops. I didn't like a lot of people. I was dealing with trauma. Obviously, I didn't know what it was back then, but now as a grown man, I figured out trauma and how to deal with that and things of that nature. But as a kid, I didn't know how to deal with it. I acted out after that. School, I stopped going to school. You know, I just became a person that was running the streets because I was running from whatever it was that was causing me to harm. You know, it was harm in the family, things that like that. It was trauma, you know, things of that nature in the family, but nothing like what we experienced in 1989.
One of the things that we did an event at RCC, and your family has become more public since the documentary, but one of the things I want to highlight, it's not just you. You have been very intentional about not just you, A. Bennett, but the whole Bennett family, and there's some other, you know, last names within that family, but you've been very intentional about talking about the macro impact. But today I want to focus on you. When you talk about what happened that night, you stopped going to school, you were running the streets and whatnot. Can I ask you an honest question? If that had not happened, do you think that that would still wind up being the case?
I don't think it was, because I was so in love with basketball, like I was one of the kids that got to school. I was going to school. I went to school. I was doing good in school. You know, I played on my middle school basketball team, so I had dreams, goals, and aspirations. But growing up in Mission Hill Projects, like, you know, some of those dreams, goals, and aspirations are not obtainable for certain people.
Yes, sir.
You know, so we try to figure out ways to just survive. So I became a person that just had to learn how to survive, just wanting to be alive.
It's so interesting, that concept of survival, being alive, and then thriving. We're going to get to the thriving because I want to make sure that folks know that despite what happened, you are thriving and excelling. We'll talk about, well, let's go right here real quick with a little bit of joy in here. You recently celebrated a birthday.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what is it, a milestone birthday or?
I mean, it's, you know, for some people it's a milestone birthday when you reach 50, but for me, it was another birthday. It was a birthday that I was just happy not to be celebrating incarcerated. You know, I tell people all the time, my milestone happened for me when I walked out of the courthouse and got a chance to have my life back after being sentenced to life in prison. So yeah, 50 is a milestone for a lot of people, but, you know, it was just another birthday for me. I was just thankful I didn't have it inside of a prison cell.
Let's go back to that. I was intentional about mixing some joy because a lot of this, a few folks reached out and said, hey, Jimmy, we want to watch. But some that have been wrongfully convicted say it's a little triggering because it's not just you. But again, back to you. So from that night, let's talk about the impact of that night and up until you were wrongfully convicted, where you're comfortable sharing. What was it like for you from that night up until a point of the system did what it did to get you wrongfully convicted? Tell us about that.
I woke up at like 10 in the morning one day on January 16th, 1997, with a police presence that was similar to how they came in my house at the Stewart's. A whole bunch of cops kicked in my door, just said they had a warrant for my arrest and told me I was being arrested for murder. And that was January 16th, 1997. April 23rd, 1998, I was found guilty, sentenced to life in prison. I didn't get back out of prison until April 30th, 2019, when a judge decided that I didn't get a fair trial.
There's so many places where I can go. In full transparency, Joey is a friend, even though I presumed his government was Joseph. There's some things that I am, you know, aware of, and so I want to ask about that. That wrongful conviction case was a very, if I'm right, was a very popular case, and there was an attempt to try to tie you. Do you mind talking about and mentioning what that was?
So, I mean, which case? I was wrong. You know, unfortunately, it was a couple of cases that I had got arrested and, you know, and dragged in the public eye for, you know, one of them being a Morning Stars case where they alleged that I had disturbed the funeral and stabbed a man 9 times. They paraded me on the newspapers, throw me away, and then, like my uncle's situation, they quietly dismissed the case without.
So publicly, let's use some of our young people's terminology. They publicly dragged
me,
but then quietly dismissed the case.
They didn't even dismiss it. They put it on Noel Pross. And if it's not a murder case, if they put something on Noel Pross, they got to 20 years.
Can you school us about what Noel, say that term?
No, so it's Noel Pross. Basically, it says that right now that we're not going to take you to trial, but if some evidence ever comes up, we're allowed to come back and take you to trial.
Okay.
So they never gave me an official dismissal. They just put me on Noel Pross. And for 20 years, I walked around with that case still open. And then this, 1997 happened.
I want to go a little bit into that based on something you just said, because we're talking about a perspective of this that we'll talk more with Naisha about later, is the mental health impact. If you could put into one word, and then you can give context, the mental health impact from 1989 up until April 30th, 97? No, April 30th.
April 23rd, 1998.
1998. What's been the mental health impact on you and your life?
I didn't really know I was dealing with mental health issues until I was waiting for my appeal, and I felt like I couldn't communicate with a lot of dudes that was in the prison system with me because they looked up to me. So if they looked up to me, how am I gonna get help from them? So I just seeked out a lady that I know that didn't know me, didn't know nothing about me, and I just talked to her one day, and when I talked to her, I had a big relief that I had taken off, and I just was like, wow, this is great. Like, to be able to talk to somebody that don't know you and not be able to talk to your peers is two different things, because my peers is gonna be like, man, stop bugging,
Yep.
you good, you strong, but a clinician let me know, just let me express myself, and it was relieving, and I found joy in just being able to talk to someone about the issues that I was dealing with while incarcerated and waiting for my decision, because I was on my third appeal, and it was like, if I didn't get this appeal, I pretty much was gonna die in prison.
There again, a lot of people that watch often, they know I feed off the energy of the guests, and so there's so much there too. And so I would not let this opportunity pass. You are an influential man in this city. That was proven. I wish we had the pictures to show it, but at your birthday celebration, you turned out half the city of Boston.
Yeah. I didn't expect that many people to come, but I felt the love. I mean, there was some people in there that, it was just some people in there that I did not expect to be there, but I was glad they was there, and that was one of the most successful events that we threw at Yard Time, because there was some people in there that, didn't like each other, but they still respected me enough that they kept their separate spaces, and, nothing happened, and I was just so thankful for that.
I'm intentional about that question and named your influence because I want to go back to the importance of you being a man, a black man. There's this misnomer that men don't seek out health care. Black men don't seek out health care, and then men won't seek out behavioral or mental health, mental wellness, sustainability, and addressing mental illness. As a black man, if you could, and we're going to ask you to, look, and I believe that camera, how important is it that we make our health, and mental health is a part of that, how important is it that we make that a priority?
For me, it's a priority because I was a child that was in and out of the prison system, child of the product of the ghetto, and like I said, I used to thrive off of people saying that I was crazy, and I ain't crazy. I'm actually smart. I just play crazy or whatever, but I was dealing with a lot. I was dealing with a lot of traumas that wasn't, dealt with, that I just kept suppressing. And for me, mental health is a lot for me, because right now I'm 50 years old. I haven't been out of prison longer than 8 to 12 months, and I'm going on my 5th year being home free, where I know now that some of my decisions based around the past was based around me struggling to understand what I was dealing with, what I was going through, because I come from a family, of addiction and things like that. So I had to make sure that I was not one of those individuals in that family, and I just picked up different things. And when I was sentenced to life in prison, that probably shook me to my core, knowing that this is where they planned for me to die at. I, be honest, I always thought I was going to die in the streets of Boston somewhere because I was involved in a lot of stuff. But now being able to give back to the community, that's why a lot of our events at Yard Time is free, because, me and my friends, we took a lot from this city, and some are not here anymore. Some have changed their lives, and some have still do the same things. But overall, we trying to just enlighten people. Like, I'm a whole headache, but I know now that I was a whole headache because I was dealing with unsolved trauma and stuff, and I deal with that now accordingly so that I don't be a problem to anyone.
I appreciate your transparency, and I asked you to look directly into the camera because I know your influence. I also know the importance of getting our brothers into healthcare, being healthy. We joked about, the certain tests and stuff we got to have now
Right.
at the age of 50,
Right.
But I was intentional about that. I want to ensure that we cover two things before we go into the next segment is what encourages you, because the mental fortitude that it took for you to be able to, and someone in the comments said, that's real, just trying to survive and then going to striving to thriving. I don't know if I would have the mental capacity, Jay. I just don't know. To have that hanging over your head with all that went on that was wrong. What is your motive, and how do you stay motivated to stay it's a cliche sort of word, but to stay positive? What keeps you grounded?
Man, I have so many bad narratives about me, man. Like people that don't know me, that only heard of me, then there's people that know me that still think I'm the same young man that want to continue with the violence and the drama and the troubles. Like, my motivation is to stay out of prison like that, because all I know was going back and forth in and out of prison. So, I got kids now. I got grown kids, actually 3 grown daughters that has sons and daughters.
Your grandpa.
I'm a grandpa, yeah. I'm a grandpa. So my thing is trying to break a generational curse of incarceration, and drug addiction. So I just stay motivated, man, just trying to just making sure that I don't want to go back to that cage, man. That's probably I probably was depressed every single day and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Because all I did was just pray to God, just give me one more shot. Just let me get out. So my thing is just trying to make sure that I change the narrative on my name, my family name, and just as a community as a whole. Like, I was with some people that took a lot from the community, and a lot of us are now trying to give back to the community, but because we're so rooted in negativity and the conversations are so rooted in negativity with us, people can't see that.
Yeah. About you.
About
it's not with, yes, sir.
Yes,
I want to be clear on that. Yep.
So some people don't even want to take the chance to see if I changed or not. So, with Yard Time, that's why we do everything. We have pretty much zero sponsorship. We do it off the grind. So, that way people don't say, oh, well, I supported and he didn't, or they didn't. Nah, it's okay. We're going to get it done on regardless.
I appreciate that in the point of you highlighting Yard Time. Let's talk about you coming home. I had to look for a picture earlier. And one of my favorite pictures is when you was looking in the camera that day in the courtroom. I didn't want to use that picture because for me it was a good day, but I just wasn't comfortable using that picture. But from the courtroom that day, coming home, talk a little bit about Yard Time and some of the work that you've done in the community. Because again, this has happened to a lot of people, and I'm not going to say a lot come home and don't do anything, because listening to you, a lot are coming home. Stephen, a lot of them are coming home doing a lot. What was the intentionality of where Yard Time came from, and you focus on mental health with them?
So I came up with the concept of Yard Time because when I was incarcerated, my letters did not show up and my visits didn't show up. I couldn't get to the phone. The next part of the joy came from when the CO yelled Yard Time.
Okay.
So I would go out in the yard, put my music on, dance around the yard, just have a good time. I had started a basketball tournament, so I wanted to feel like I was in Washington Park still.
Yes, sir.
So just that whole thought process, and a lot of the young kids that were coming in, we used to always say, why are you always yelling Yard Time when the CO yell it? And I told them, one day I'm gonna be back on the street, man. I'm gonna build Yard Time. Yard Time was supposed to be a promotions.
Yeah, it was Yard Time Entertainment. Yes,
Yard Time was an event promotions things, and you know, dealing with my court case and being still open and my case happened inside of a nightclub, I didn't want to focus on that. So I had started shadowing a couple of guys that were doing nonprofit work. And I seen the lack of help. Like I feel like the guys that are like 24 to 50, they're forgotten. Like,
yes,
you know, everything is between 24 and down, and the guys that are like 24 and up are being forgotten. And most of those guys are coming home to nothing. And when we come home, we want to do good, but we don't have the tools to get right. It's hard for us to get back to adjusted. If you let somebody come out after 22 years, what do you expect him to have for motivation and aspirations and goals if he's not having a proper support system? I had a village around me.
Talk about the village.
One of my bros is right there. He's standing there. He's always been with me. You know, Jamal Douglas, he's always been there. You know, I mean, these are the people that I grew up with, you know, Michael Coleman and stuff like that. But just to be able to come, when I went to court, I didn't know what my situation, my life, what my fate was going to be. When the judge gave me a bail after 22 years, I don't know who's going to have money to bail me out. But when I turned around, that picture you say when I looked in the camera, that was me smiling because my family said, yo, we coming to get you. Don't worry about that.
Yes.
You're not even going back to the jail, because usually you get a bail and somebody can't make it, you go back to the jail and wait. I didn't even make it back to the jail. I was still in the courthouse and they bailed me out. And after 22 years, I didn't know what to expect. So when I came out the courthouse, the only thing I know is the yell yard time. That's
and there is a clip, and there is a clip of that.
Yeah, and you know, and I used to tell the guys that once I get to the stairs, I'm gonna dance on the courthouse steps for y'all, because y'all used to always see me dance in the yard. Nobody else never seen me dancing around. So when I had my birthday party and they shined the light on
trying
me,
not to.
I mean, I still got to.
I wish I had the.
I got to still do my two-step, man. Like, you know, it did, and it felt good. You know, it felt good. Like I said, I had 22 birthdays in prison. Probably more, because I was in and out of prison, but I had 22 birthdays straight in prison. So to celebrate my 50 out here with people that love me, people that was around, people that enjoyed themselves, that came out and it was safe, was monumental to me. You know, I mean, everybody was scared to come. Because they say, yo, he gonna have all the gangbangers and he gonna have all these people.
This is another convo, but there's impact in that, and those that have the ability to resource and pull in someone like yourself, to there's that OG model and whatnot. I listen, our time, I get to talk to you on a regular.
You do.
But I am so glad, and you made it be a easy sort of the end of the interview, because we're ending in Black Joy. That I do have the footage, y'all. I just don't, I didn't get it to the production team, but this brother danced on Saturday night. And Joey, I appreciate you. Thank you for your transparency. And thank you for, we didn't go a whole lot into it, but thank you for advocating beyond yourself. The event at RCC and everything that you've been doing has been for the yard. And so, brother, we don't do this too often, but I appreciate you. I know I might get in trouble with production, give you a little hug too, but Joseph Bennett was one of our, you can please give him a hand. And we're getting ready to go into our next segment, but I just wanted to acknowledge.
Hey everyone, I'm back. I was getting ready to end the video because it is about Joseph today, but one, I want to get the footage up. And hello to Dana. I want to get the footage up of him dancing. And I also do have the mayor's apology queued up. I'm going to show that after. The second segment of this was with Reverend Jeffrey Brown, who was a part of the Murder in Boston documentary. And the reason why I'm going to go ahead and show Reverend Brown's interview, because I need for us to really understand what happened and is happening in police reform in this city. And I'll venture to say that it was largely built on the backs of the Bennett family. And so with that being said, we will continue the interview, with Reverend Jeffrey Brown because he sets a tone of the time. He was here as a young man and an advocate. Ladies and gentlemen, in the Java Cafe right now is this good friend and brother. And I've just been emotional all day. But it's good to see you here, sir. And I want to publicly say, and I've said to you privately, and I said it this morning and before, and I'll say it again until Jesus come. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to go ahead, and if it's okay with you, share the portion of Reverend Brown's interview, because as I was saying, Joey, a lot of the police reform in this city, I'm sure case studies and whatnot go back to the wrong that was done to you and your family. And so I'm going to go ahead and continue. We are honored to have Joseph Bennett himself in the virtual cafe. He will be with us soon. But I'm going to go ahead and continue the interview with Reverend Jeffrey Brown. And Joey, you already know if you want to call. No, we'll wait. But if you want to say anything, to make it plain to me, and we'll make that happen. We're going to continue with the interview from January of this year in speaking with Jeffrey Brown, who at that time, I believe, was working with the 10-Point Coalition. All right, folks, we'll be right back with you shortly. Acknowledge
some of the comments online about Joseph and the impact of his words. Mama Java, who is my mother, says hello to Joseph Bennett. Michelle Smith says hello as well. Aaron Davis is saying good morning to Mama Java. And Nicole Hart is saying hello to Joey's nickname, otherwise known as Toot. And so Conchetta Johnson highlights the fact that Joseph is addressing generational curses and breaking them. And also Michelle from Facebook is naming that everyone deserves a second chance in every circumstance of life. And also Leslie is saying happy birthday to Joey as well. Belinda from Facebook is saying more needs to be done to support these men returning to their communities. They paid their price. Advocacy is needed so they don't return to prison. Belinda, I think that is such a great comment to segue into our next segment. Joseph was able, from experience, to talk directly to the impact of wrongful convictions on him as an individual. Though he does advocate for community, we got to hear a little bit behind the scenes, not so much behind the scenes, but a real personable impact on his life for 22 years in prison, that night at the house. That is the individual, and he does move in the macro of addressing things about wrongful convictions for others. My next guest is Reverend Jeffrey Brown. He is, and I know somewhere in here I'm going to get in trouble as I reference to the credibility he has through his short time of service.
Don't start.
Excuse me, see, that's what I get for being a little bit smart. Reverend Jeffrey Brown is an impactful advocate in the city of Boston and across the country. He is well known for being with the 10-Point Coalition. He is currently the associate pastor at 12th Baptist Church. We just want to acknowledge and thank Pastor Willie Broderick and Reverend Brown for also acknowledging the Bennett family a few weeks ago at their MLK event. But Reverend Brown is going to speak to us from more of a macro standpoint about wrongful convictions. We'll talk a little bit about some of what one of his most famous statements out the documentary. It's been over social media. So Reverend Brown, welcome again. You're not a stranger to the Java Cafe, but here, welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And let me try to get myself together for trying to be smart and almost choke. See, you don't mess with the preachers.
Don't mess with the preachers now. Ain't you a preacher, bro?
Reverend Brown, please say hello to the people.
Hello, people. God bless you all. Thank you all. And thank you, Reverend Hill, for allowing me to be here on this august program.
Reverend Brown, after the show, sir.
Yes, I know.
We pray that the Lord protect you. In all seriousness, Reverend Brown, you have been a mentor. You were you all see a refined Jimmy, but Reverend Brown remembers when I was a little a little energetic around some things in an activist space. You've always engaged and gave me the opportunity to participate, influence, and inform. So I want to personally thank you for that. You were here in 1989.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the impact on the community of what happened from 89 and up until you want to talk about transition?
Yeah, well, first of all, I just wanted to acknowledge Joey Bennett and the candor in which he spoke and the honesty. You know, he is a wonderful man to be able to speak truth in the way that he did. So it was very gratifying for me to hear, you know, and the whole idea of what happened in Boston was embodied by this docuseries, Murder in Boston, and that it came from the community's perspective was really groundbreaking, right? Something that we all knew for the past 30-something years, but to be able to see it and hear it articulated was really important. And it was as it was. It was a scorched earth type of approach to dealing with a murder and the assumption that a black man did it. And I remember driving down Parker Street in that process, and I remember there were young men up against the wall of houses, and you know the housing is not like the housing today, right? So it was the red brick walls. And I remember a young man on the ground, and the cops were looking in cars, looking for black men that they could pull over and, I guess, question and all of that. There were folks who didn't want to go into the city because of all of that, what was happening. And then I remember the utter outrage that came from the community, that was embodied in community leaders when it was discovered that the husband did it. Now, there were two detectives that knew from the beginning, or at least had suspicion from the beginning, that he was the one who killed his own wife. But they were taken off of the case because of the politics, in my opinion, that swirled around that. And so, and some of that was, you've got this increase in violence that was happening in the community. You had the police who was given unfettered powers to deal with that. And part of the fear that came from the majority community was that, this city is under siege and it could impact me, it could impact my family. And then you have this woman who is killed in a car, 8 months pregnant, and the husband blaming the black man. And it was like throwing gasoline on fire.
Yes, sir.
And so it sort of affirmed for the majority community all of the stereotypes that sort of fed into that. And then they ran with it. I mean, they literally ran with it. Boston, when I first came, and it was in 1984, when I first came to the area, was a series of neighborhoods that were balkanized, right? So when I came to Boston, I had folks from, my neighborhood who would say, look, don't go into South Boston at night. There's these certain areas where you don't go, right? Because we want you to come back home, and all of that. And so that was clearly the case in those days. And so that Stewart case just sort of brought to light all of the ugliness that they thought they were putting to bed after the busing crisis. One of the names that they didn't mention in the docuseries that I really thought should have been mentioned was Mel King. He was the one that was running against Ray Flynn in the 1983 mayoral race. And it was, the the tensions around that was palpable. I came in '84, but I would hear about that race and hear about the things that were said, during that period of time. You had this black man who almost became mayor of Boston.
And which, Rev, would really be, it would have, I believe, been a different outcome had Mel King won. Because we are mentioning an ancestor, I just wanted to mention that we salute the family of Mel King, our powerful advocate. I remember seeing him walking down Mount Pleasant with the rainbow, and that concept actually went on to Jesse Jackson's Rainbow Coalition. And so, Rev, let me ask you, because and I don't have it verbatim, but one of the sentiments of the comments that you made in the film was that this is not old Boston.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about the macro impact of wrongful conviction in the context of what you talked about then and where we are now in the context of wrongful conviction. Can you compare and contrast, because those convictions a lot lean on or depend on the investigative process.
Yes.
Where are we comparison to 1989, 2024?
1989 was, as I said, it was almost like a scorched earth policy. You had folks who were going to jail, for charges while detectives were trying to build cases, on folks. That's what happened to Willie Bennett, right?
And Joseph.
And Joey, right? So you had, in Willie's case, they put him in jail holding him for that Brookline robbery. And they were working on the Stewart case, while holding him. That detective that was interviewed, Dunn, basically said that was the motivation behind that, right? So, we need to look into that case as well. But there was a lot of that happening. And the larger context was, really frightening, because we did have a proliferation of guns in our community. Yeah. We did have,
89 was one of the worst, if you remember, was one of the worst
89
years.
and 90. Yeah. I think 1990 we had 152 homicides, 1,100 gun shootings. So we had hundreds of people dying, you had thousands of people getting shot. And you had largely young people doing that. Right. So, we're talking about, 18 and under. And so, so it was really frightening for the community in general. But the approach was not to, lock everybody up. Right. Well, the approach was to lock everybody up.
Yes.
Right. And so that you had people who were going to jail for crimes that they did not commit, but because they were associated with certain groups or in certain neighborhoods, that happened.
Which is today's gang database.
Exactly. And so you have people who are currently incarcerated who have the same stories as Joey. And so, we have organizations who are trying hard to do something about that, but that was a reality back then. Now is different. When you start having police leadership that is reflective of the community, when you have folks like, Nora Baston and people like Commissioner Michael Cox, you start to see a different outcome. When you have docuseries like Murder in Boston, you start seeing the narrative around what happened begin to change and be more reflective of the truth that the community had to embody. And I always say, the law enforcement piece is important. There were some people, frankly, who had to go to jail because they shot and killed somebody, right? But our community was under siege in those times. When you talk about failed housing policies, when you talk about poor educational institutions within communities, when you talk about, racism, when you talk about poor health care.
You're talking about back then.
Yes.
That could be applicable. Can you say?
Exactly. So for me, what we have today is a different leadership strata.
Okay.
And I'm really grateful for our current mayor,
Yes.
Mayor Michelle Wu, who, has demonstrated that she's looking at things through a much different lens than before.
Let me ask you real quick and we can go on. The apology. For someone that has, I was going to say endured, but for someone who has experienced how many mayors? 5, 6?
Yeah, a bunch of them.
Over that 34, in her case 32, because she's only been in a couple of years, how significant, based on what we know of what we call Boston?
Hey, everyone. I was able to locate the clip of Mayor Wu's apology, and so I think I'm going to be able to play that now. Here it is. I think it's in the right format. Y'all pray.
We are here today to acknowledge the tremendous pain that the city of Boston inflicted on Black residents throughout our neighborhoods 34 years ago. The mayor's office, city officials, and the Boston Police Department took actions that directly harmed these families and continue to impact the larger community, reopening a wound that has gone untended for decades. In response to the murder of Carol Stewart and her child, and acting on a false, racist claim framing a Black man for her death, the city launched a systemic campaign targeting Black men in Mission Hill and across our neighborhoods. Black fathers, Black uncles, Black brothers, and Black sons. If you were a parent or a child or a partner or a friend, if you knew and loved a Black man in Boston, you feared for his life. There was no evidence that a Black man had committed this crime. But that didn't matter, because the story was one that confirmed and exposed the beliefs that so many shared, from residents and reporters to officers and officials. At every level and at every opportunity, those in power closed their eyes to the truth because the lie felt familiar. They saw the story they wanted to see. And as a result, our Black residents suffered. As a result, Alan Swanson suffered, Willie Bennett suffered, and their families continue to suffer. On behalf of the Boston Police Department, the Mayor's Office, and the entire city of Boston.
Wait. Okay, hold on, y'all. That was a clip that needs to be edited. I have the full one and we'll come back, but you see where she was going. I'll play the full clip in 2 seconds, but let's continue with the conversation where Reverend Jeffrey Brown, I asked him about the significance of the mayor apologizing on behalf of the city of Boston. We'll be back after the segment with him and get up to Mayor Wu's full apology.
Boston's interesting history at the hall and whatnot. How significant was that apology?
It was huge. I mean, for me, I could never see under the current system a mayor intentionally doing something like this. But this is a different Boston, and you have a different type of leadership that's leading this city.
And go back into that.
And so for me, to bear witness to that and to see the effects of the trauma on the faces of the Bennett family and the Swanson family, and the most impactful moment for me in that whole press event was Tito Jackson.
Oh, goodness.
When he got up and sort of talked about the impact of this and the tears that flowed from him and from Joey and from other members of the family as they talked about that, and you think about the whole weight of that that has been borne by the community over all these years, for the mayor to be able to do that, and for the police commissioner to also
And that
able-
was missed.
Yeah.
There were calls on social media, BPD, and if you know Commissioner
Yeah.
Cox, he's not
No,
that
he's-
animated. He's very even-keeled.
Yeah.
And so we're going to have to wrap up in a couple of minutes.
Yep.
Rev,
Well, you know I'm Baptist. I
Where-
can talk all day now. You know.
where do you see Boston going?
Yeah.
You talk about leadership, you talk about racism. This mayor, who is an Asian woman,
Yeah.
who speaks fluent Spanish.
Yes.
Leadership is changing, and I think because so much has been brought to surface, it's kind of going into our preacher mode. The dross is slowly but surely being burnt off.
Yes.
We pray. Where do you see Boston going in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I actually am very hopeful about the city and where we're going at this point. I think our future is much brighter than we realize, because I think that there are many people, and not just in communities of color,
Right.
but throughout the city, that are ready for this change and are willing to be able to address some of these structural issues that I was mentioning before in our communities of color and in other places where before it always seemed like, well, we'll try to do what we can.
Just
but
enough.
but now you've got a mayor who's like, we've got to enact some structural change. So how do we do that? And how do we do that together?
And equitably.
And inequitably. I mean, and we've got a city council, Ruth Z.
Yes, our city council president.
Our city council president is also of that mindset. And so, we've got a lot of hope in the city. And I'm always encouraged by, people like Joey Bennett, who, despite the fact that he spent 22 birthdays straight, in prison, is coming out and saying, I want to give back to the community. I want to be able to make a difference in the community. That's always, that's at the heart of who we are as a people. And so, the more we recognize that and the less we try to demonize people, the better we'll be as a city.
Rev, I appreciate you. We could go a whole lot longer, but we're getting ready to chat with we'll talk about the mental health impact and how we remove some of the barriers. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Reverend Brown. Let's give him a hand.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do have the clip with the mayor, and so I'm going to play that, and we're going to go ahead and let you go. And so for those of you that are just joining us, out of respect and homage to the good brother Joey Bennett, who was with us. I'm not sure if he's still here. I'm looking at my text messages. He is still here. Okay, I'm going to call Joseph in just a couple of seconds and get him on the phone to chat with us. So if you give me, I want to, because I know you all, and this is very important before we get Joseph on the phone. Looking for my charger. Y'all know we do stuff in real time here in the Java Cafe. I'm going to get him queued up on the phone. I'm going to play the portion of the mayor's actual apology. And we will be back with you, and we're going to get Joseph on the phone. You just need to give me a second to queue up the mayor. Hold on for 1 second. This is where the family is coming in. And if you don't mind, I'm just going to speed up. Here's the mayor's comment. So I'm going to start it back when she comes to the podium, all the way through the apology.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. I am joined here by leaders from our city administration, from across the Commonwealth, and most importantly, from the Bennett family and alongside Mr. Alan Swanson. I want to recognize a few of these leaders who have helped to make sure we can be coordinated for today and for the actions that will follow as well. You'll hear in a little bit from Commissioner Michael Cox, Commissioner of our Boston Police Department. I also want to thank and recognize Frank Farrow, who's the Executive Director of Boston's Office of Black Male Advancement. You'll hear in a little bit from the Chair of the Black Men and Boys Commission, Tito Jackson, former City Councilor. I want to thank and recognize Chief Shagun Idawu, who runs our Economic Opportunity and Inclusion Cabinet in Boston. We also are grateful for Lori Nelson, who's our Senior Advisor on Racial Justice, Chief Mariangeli Solis-Cervera, Chief of Equity and Inclusion, our Chief of Communications, Jessica Pierre. We also are joined by friends, partners, and inspirations in the community, Bishop Dickerson of Greater Love Tabernacle, Judge Leslie Harris. I believe Sheriff Steve Tompkins is in the room. We also, District Attorney Kevin Hayden sends his deepest apology that he couldn't make it here today, but he very much wanted to be here and is represented by his first assistant, Ed Zabin. So thank you for being here as well. There's just so many community leaders as we move across the room. Reverend Jeffrey Brown, thank you so much. Pastor Rasan Hall from the Urban League, Lee Pelton from the the Boston Foundation, and we're live at Saving the Java with Jimmy in the movement as well. I know there are many others, for example, former state representative Jeffrey Sanchez of Mission Hill. It was very important that he wanted to be part and present for this as well, and many others as I'm scanning across the room. Thank you. Thank you all for the courage and the challenge that you bring to the indispensable work of building a Boston that our residents deserve. And I know so many in this room are taking the actions that are shaping us toward the city that we know we can be. I want to recognize several members. I got some time and will treasure very deeply the moments that we had before this with the family members, just to hear directly some of the impact and some of the ongoing experiences that this family has borne and continues to. So thank you to Mr. Alan Swanson and Willie Bennett, who couldn't be here today. Thank you to Ms. Vida and Diane, Willie's sisters, Aisha, Ebony, Nicole, Nathaniel, Shannon, and Whitney, his children, the entire Bennett family, and I know we'll hear from Joey in a little bit. Your presence here is a gift in the truest sense of the word, in that it has been given to the city, but not earned. Thank you for granting all of us this opportunity today. We know that we can't imagine the strength and grace that you bring today and that you have for 34 years. And I thank you for your faith in our capacity to do better. We are here today to acknowledge the tremendous pain that the city of Boston inflicted on Black residents throughout our neighborhoods 34 years ago. The mayor's office, city officials, and the Boston Police Department took actions that directly harmed these families and continue to impact the larger community, reopening a wound that has gone untended for decades. In response to the murder of Carol Stewart and her child, and acting on a false, racist claim framing a Black man for her death, the city launched a systemic campaign targeting Black men in Mission Hill and across our neighborhoods. Black fathers, Black uncles, Black brothers, and Black sons. If you were a parent or a child or a partner or a friend, if you knew and loved a Black man in Boston, you feared for his life. There was no evidence that a Black man had committed this crime. But that didn't matter, because the story was one that confirmed and exposed the beliefs that so many shared, from residents and reporters to officers and officials. At every level, And at every opportunity, those in power closed their eyes to the truth because the lie felt familiar. They saw the story they wanted to see. And as a result, our Black residents suffered. As a result, Alan Swanson suffered, Willie Bennett suffered, and their families continue to suffer. On behalf of the Boston Police Department, the Mayor's Office, and the entire City of Boston, I want to say to Mr. Swanson and Mr. Bennett, the entire Bennett family, and Boston's entire Black community, I am so sorry for what you endured.
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to be sensitive to Mr. Bennett's time. We're getting ready to get him on the phone real quick. He's going to call in, and we're going to speak with him just about this. And there's some more coming later this month, but let's get him on the phone.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Look, I'm typing and I literally got ready to say on the phone. Joey, how you doing, brother?
I'm all right.
I got you here checking in, and as you see, we went live. Thanks for being in the room. Just, we won't hold you long, but with how are you feeling about the last couple of days?
I'm feeling good, man. I think at this point it's it's a lot to deal with, but for the most part, I'm ecstatic, I'm joyed, I'm feeling vindicated, exonerated, looking for the next chapters of my life. I got a few things planned, working out for me and my family, and trying to make things better for everybody surrounding my family and me.
Absolutely, brother. We're going to hear from more from you soon, but I just, with what happened yesterday, and us having this time to talk in January, it's out of respect and homage. And we've talked, you gave permission for me to rebroadcast this today. So, anything you want to say to community and any, Steven and others, and you advocate, Joey, for others, in this space, anything you want to say to brothers, sisters too, and their families that are fighting, and you fought for a long time, but any words you want to say to them?
Yeah, of course. My thing would be, don't give up hope. Don't leave your family member behind. Sometimes it takes a little longer process. Don't give up hope. Don't forget the faith, and keep, confident that one day that your opportunity will come. I mean, I had people leave me behind, which actually motivated me to try harder to come home. I know what it feels like to be sitting somewhere you shouldn't be. And I know what it feels like to be sitting somewhere that you deserve to be. It's just a process, and it's a process that you have to stay grounded on, because you might not. It took me 3 appeals to come home. The first 2 was denied. I had lawyers say, okay, nothing else I could do, and nothing else they could do for me. And then I met Jennifer O'Brien, who said that she's going to stick with me. She held my case for 12 years. She worked with me to bring me home, her and Lorenzo Perez, when everybody else thought I was dead in the cells.
I want to be sensitive and not hold you, and we're going to talk, at a later date, but I've been saying it all day. I've been saying it since, us reconnecting, that the respect and honor that I have for you and that we all have for you, and this realization in the last couple of weeks, and I've thought about it before, but a lot of what goes on in police reform of late since this was built on you guys back as a family. and you being a one of you and your uncle. And also, we want to mention Mr. Swanson, because back a year ago, you were very intentional. I want to leave room because it's not just about you. I want to leave room for that, and I'll let you go, sir.
Well, Alan Swanson, which I knew that the city wouldn't apologize with him. So when they said they was going to apologize to me and my family, Alan Swanson was close to my uncle at one time. So I felt that he needed to get an apology also. So I brought him with us. So I want to believe that things are going to turn out great for everybody, the city, my family, Mr. Swanson. It's very unfortunate that we had to go through this. I'm a generational lock-in because after my uncle, they targeted me. It was just sad. It's just sad how things go. This is the streets, but at the same time, there are new police officers coming out here. I don't know how to distinguish them, but I know when I went to go talk to the new cadets, I explained to them that this is a new day and time, and a lot of things that were done back in the days are not happening now. And I know that sometimes it's harder to talk to the youth. So for me, I just felt like talking to the new recruits would be able to navigate that interaction between the youth that they're going to come into contact with and the police officers that are coming in to be officers nowadays, because it's a dangerous world out there, probably worse than what it was when I was growing up. But the police and the wrongful convictions, they're still the same. They will lock you up for something you didn't do just to solve a case and let alone investigate the case.
Yes, sir. I want to keep my commitment to your time and be sensitive. I want to mention the queen as we talk about women, because women are impacted in this space too, as you know, Joey. Stacey K. Borden is in the room, and she says, yes, the universe has spoken and God is good. I am so sorry too. You and your family had to endure such tragic trauma. We love you and absolutely adore and admire your strengths and resilience. The world is in your the world is in your hands now, brother. We love you. That's the thing where I'm going to let you go, because we'll be here another 20 minutes because I'm just waiting for what's to come.
You know what's to come, Jimmy. You my soft publicist, man. You know what's coming up next, man. You just can't say nothing.
Joey, get off of here before we get in trouble. All right. I love you, man. Appreciate you. Stay strength. Go out and have something unhealthy tonight to eat and enjoy yourself, sir.
Jimmy, thanks for the call. Salute to everybody, man.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah. Peace. Ladies and gentlemen, that was our Joseph Bennett. And so I'm done. We've heard from him. We've paid our respect. And just pay attention. Follow Yard Time Entertainment. Go to Google. Actually, I can get the link for you right now and put it in the comments. And support a lot of the work that they do. We just came out of this week of Giving Tuesday and things like that. They are a nonprofit. And so I'm going to put the link for Yard Time in the actual comments. Hey, Stacy, in the actual comments. And so this is the hyperlink. If you would like to donate to Yard Time Entertainment, I'm going to go ahead. It's not Twitter. I don't know if it's popping up for you. Actually, you know what? I'll post it on Twitter later. But there, right there in the comments, everyone that is watching, please go. And if you go into the website, right below the video there is, and what I'm going to do, because it's a different platform to donate, I'm going to put that exact link in the comments as well. That'll take you to the direct portal where you can make a donation to Yard Time Entertainment. I've always said on this platform, a bunch of $5, a bunch of $3, a bunch of $10, and a few $50 too helps and adds up. And so please support Yard Time Entertainment and this brother, because the work in which he's going to do going forward is more than likely through this entity and him as an individual as well, because you mentioned me being a soft publicist in colleges, police cadets, schools, law schools. Y'all need to reach out, bring this brother in, compensate him for his time and his experience, because as police reform, is going to need to be a priority in these next 4 years. He needs to guide and be a voice, not only on that, but when it comes to violence and stuff here in Boston. But I'm going to get off of here before I get in trouble and go one more comment. Let me just make sure. Lynn is in the building, someone who advocates in this space for many as well. So very happy for Joseph and many more innocent people to come home. The movement for justice is gaining momentum. Absolutely. All right, folks. We will see you regular Java with Jimmy on Monday at 10 a.m. Have a great weekend, everybody. Be safe. I would also say during this time, Reverend Brown was on some years ago. We launched this thing called the Season of Peace, where we kept it very real and asked brothers, for the sake of the children, can we get a season of peace from now through the new year? Some said, well, it needs to be all year long. No, we're being very intentional. Take it one day at a time. So, and this brother is very paramount in messaging. So, Joey, we're going to get you to do a commercial. But yeah, we need to get that messaging out there, because as he referenced, before we go, I just had it. He referenced to his birthday. Crap, I just had it on the screen. He referenced to his birthday and dancing, but I done messed up. So, but he is paramount in bringing together. The numbers are low, even though for some of us, the data that we feel is very different from what the numbers say. The numbers can be even lower if we utilize people like Joseph Bennett and others, Stephen Pena, Stacey K. Borden, the Innocence Project, others that are out here doing. Brother, I can't even think of the brother's name, but I can see his face. So I'm getting off of here. We'll see you guys on Monday at 10 a.m. Have a great day, everybody, and we appreciate you being in the room. Let's walk away with some Black joy with the brother here, just a little comedy. And we'll see you on Monday at 10 a.m. Have a great weekend, everybody. Peace.
Microphone check 1 2. Here we go. Java with Jimmy live at the City Winery. Microphone check 1 2. How you doing? I am well. Are you? We just here to have a good time. We're here to have a good time with everybody, hanging out at City Winery. Coming to perform, and they're taking pictures of us. Some will do like this real quick.